Welcome back to The Million. Today I've got Consultation, and as my apprentice, bro, you've been having some fun. You just played a kids game, Bigger and Better.
Yes.
What was that all about?
It was a good experience, Kris. Definitely some hurdles, showing up at people's door with the camera behind me was very startling for some people. One dude told me to get off his grass. Another lady went like this to me. But for the most part, people are very receptive. And it was interesting to see that I realized that there's no such thing as getting something for free. I was still giving them something. The people that gave me stuff, it was more for the variety, the unique situation that was happening, right? They're like, oh, this is kind of fun. I was still giving them something.
Yeah.
And that's why they participated. And then the people that refuse is because they're like, I don't want to be bothered. I was still trying to take something from them, even though I wasn't asking for money.
So this entire game, why do you think I asked you to play Bigger and Better?
Because it's to show you that there's always a trade. People value different things at different amounts, and you can trade up even when it seems like you have nothing to offer.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we assume that money is the only thing that people value, and it's not. They value lots of things.
So years ago, this was after the 2008 crisis, I was hemorrhaging money left and right in my businesses, and I wasn't getting paid. And I was paying all my employees, and I wasn't getting paid. And I remember it put me into a really big fear cycle. And I was worrying about my big $1.8 million house that had now gone down to $1 million. And now I was upside down on it. And I was thinking about my expensive vehicles that I had to pay for, but I didn't have a paycheck. And at the time I had like 100 grand plus in my bank account, and I was eating at it and whittling it down. And I remember that sense of security that money in the bank had for me was dwindling. When the money hit $50,000, I remember I kind of had this panic moment where I just started hyperventilating and realizing, oh my gosh, it's been a long time since I've had so little money in my bank account, but I such big lifestyle expenses. It's not like 50 grand was a lot of money with the way I was living, high on the horse. And then I calmed myself down, I meditated, I got myself and just said, hey, you get to have this experience and you get to learn from it and you're gonna be okay. That's what I would tell myself. I don't know if I believed it. Well, I remember I got to the point where my account had $1,800 in it, which meant that I was one day late from being late on all of my accounts. I was one day late from not making my mortgage payment or anything else. And that particular morning, I got up at 4 a.m. to go run in the canyon with my buddies to go do our own self-made marathon. I'd already plotted the course from my house all the way up the canyon, 13 miles and back. And so we got started on this multi-hour run. And this is a course in the back of my mind. On the very last mile, all of us were spread out except for me and a buddy of mine. His name's Andy Goddard. At the time, he was doing very well in doTERRA. It's a multi-level marketing company. One of the very high ups has crushed it financially. And so I'm talking to a guy who's in a space of financial abundance, and I feel like a fraud because everyone looked at my lifestyle and they're like, wow, Kris is doing so well. But actually I was hurting. I'm running that last mile and he's pulling ahead, and I'm about to slow down and stop. And if you've ever run distance, you know that once you walk, it's over. So I just said, please stay by my side. So he slowed down a little bit. And he paced with me, and I kept going, and he wanted to get my mind off stuff. So he said, tell me what's going on. And I told him. And then he said, wow, what a difficult situation to be in. What are you learning? And I had this very spiritual moment where I felt God through Holy Spirit talk to me and share 3 lessons. And as I spoke them, I knew I was speaking pure truth. The first one was, I know that my family will never be homeless. I know how to knock on doors and ask friends, family, or strangers how to let my kids not be homeless. And all of a sudden I knew that was true as I spoke it. And all of a sudden I had this comfort that in my worst case financial scenario, my family wasn't gonna be homeless. The second thing that came out of my mouth also kind of surprised me. I will always be able to provide at least 2 square meals a day for my family. I know that I'm that resourceful. I could be in a wheelchair and I'm still that resourceful. So my family's never gonna go hungry. And I found great comfort in knowing that with food and shelter, the majority of the true needs were actually met. The third thing really threw me for a loop. Leave your children a legacy of passion instead of money. And as it came out of my mouth, I realized that what was really important was not how financially successful I was, but the way I chose to live my life, which means that whether I'm poor or rich, if I'm living my life intentionally, that's the legacy, not what's left behind, but who I was as a person. You play Bigger and Better, and it causes you to maybe think, wait a second, if I didn't have a job and if I had no money, could I start with a paperclip, go door to door, and every day create something worth $50 or $100 that I could exchange for food and shelter? Let me ask you, could you?
Yeah.
Yeah, if that was your worst case scenario, you could do it, right?
For sure.
And strangely, the mindset of becoming a very successful person financially What I'm doing here for you is I want you to be so abundant. In fact, right before this episode, I shared an idea with you. I don't know if your mind is still reeling on this idea of, whoa, I could acquire 20 homes with no money. And the reality is it's a mindset. Once your mindset is financially broken with a low financial barometer and a lack of self-belief and no confidence and tearing ourselves down, then amen to that man and his financial ability. But my first mentor, Dolph DeRoos, taught me this. He said, the real estate between your 2 ears. These 6 inches are the most powerful and important thing that you will ever possess. So what have you been learning about this game of having a positive attitude? Putting an arrow on your throat, first of all, what was that like?
That was cool. It was cool to choose into something and feel like I was choosing into something that was hard and that not everybody is willing to do. Ultimately, I knew, like logically, I was like, Kris isn't going to hurt me.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be fine. But there's like a wall that you got to get over where you're like, I'm committing to it, and you step into that. And it does fill you with power. Yeah. You're like, oh, I just did something different and proved I could do it. And honestly, I had similar walls. That first door I was knocking on, it was like, okay, I hope I don't get punched today. I hope nobody throws anything at me. Like, we're going to see how this goes. But every time I got over one of those walls, the next one was like easier and easier to do.
Yeah. It's interesting that what you just said, therein lies the secret to wealth. If you're willing to do what almost no one's willing to, you can have what most people never can. It reminds me a little bit of the story of creation. I think a lot about the scriptures. I've read them my whole life, and I like extracting the messages that they have. And when I look at the message of creation, I think there's a very, very beautiful lesson for us. If I were to give you kind of the urban version of the creation story, it might be like, yo, there's some stuff over there. What if we took that and made a world? So it had to have been thought, and then it was spoken, and then it happened, because there wasn't a world before it was spoken. And then you're like, oh, that place is kind of dry. Let there be water. Or it's dark. Let there be light. And there's this pattern that most humans are like a doubting Thomas. We're like, I'll believe it when I see it. But true creation is to step into something that never has been, believing that it can be, putting forth the effort consummate, and then actually watching it come into creation. Like starting with a paperclip and then winding up with a much more valuable object.
Or a bunch of objects.
That's what we're actually going to be doing in the game of real estate. And that's actually where we're headed into our next season is you started with nothing, and we've really done a recap this season on how you turned that into $1 million net worth. It's impressive. You did it over 7 years. Now, how old are you?
39.
You're 39. So you're like, if I just start all over again with what Kris taught me, 7 years from now, I could be a millionaire again. True or false? Oh, good. So that would then put you at 46. And if you did it one more time, that would put you at 53 and then 60 and then 65. You could do this 4 more times, which means with what I've taught you in the game of real estate in the last 7 years to make $1 million, you have 4 more rotations till you're 65-ish, which means you could be worth $5 million, except we're now going to go for acceleration.
Yeah.
I want to teach you new ways of acquiring real estate without any money at all, because I want to show you how to go even faster. Because if you can make $1 million in 7 years, you can make it sooner than that. That's really where we're headed.
Yep.
Thoughts?
Well, one thing comes to mind, Kris, and I think this is probably applicable to most things in life. The bigger, better thing, it's just a numbers game. There was no way I was not going to get the $250 limit because it's just a matter of knocking enough doors.
Yeah.
Like, as long as I didn't stop knocking doors. Now, partway through, I decided I was going to try some things and maybe work smarter rather than harder.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting experience too, because it was interesting, Kris. What I had to trade on the doorstep didn't really matter.
Yeah.
Wasn't about the object. It mattered who was behind the door, the mood they were in, and whether or not they would answer. Like, those are the biggest things. Like, the doors, 90% of the doors that actually opened, traded. What slowed us down was all the people that didn't answer.
So you got to go to places where you got the right neighborhood.
Yep.
The right time of day.
Yep.
The right doors.
Yep.
And just all of a sudden, in just playing that game, here's what you learn. I'm making more money playing a stupid game than an average college grad. Think about that for just a minute. This is where we're training the mind into possibilities. And you said something really important. You can't really control someone's home, but you can control their mood. Meaning if they come to you with a bad mood and this was the only way you could make money, guess what would happen after time? If you were feeding your family and taking care of your family this way, guess what you would have to learn how to do?
How to control their energy.
How to control their energy, which means you'd have to learn how to control whose energy?
My energy.
Yeah.
Well, and something interesting, Kris, is I found that the camera was actually one of the most prohibitive things.
Yeah.
When people would open, they'd be startled when they see the camera.
Yeah.
And some would roll with it and be like, whatever, but then others would be like, I don't want to be on camera.
Yeah.
I don't want to be on camera.
You could have definitely,
and I was like, oh,
you could have quickened your pace, right?
And so I actually sent out my daughter and I was like, gave her a thing and I was like, go play with you and your friend bigger and better. And that approach was much better because when it's like young kids playing, there's less of a barrier. And in like 20 minutes, they already had better items than I was getting all afternoon doing it by myself.
So just imagine, you've got 3 kids. So 3 daughters.
Yep.
So imagine if you sent them all door to door
and they just,
instead of having a job and you acquired $250 a day per kid, $750 a day. Dude, that's 6 figures. And while I'm joking,
but the concept.
The concept is creativity. Real estate is actually all about creativity. We're not going to do this in the next season, but you want me to give you a little teaser into where we're going after? Okay, I want you to think about this. I helped you build your original portfolio, and now you're technically a millionaire, right? So you have track record. Your track record isn't as big as mine, but you could come to me and say, hey, Kris, I want to tap into your inventory on really good deals. And I'm going to tap into my network on people that have money in 401ks and IRAs or equity in their home. And can we do a partnership where I put the 2 of them together? And then I start acquiring real estate with their money in your deals and I start getting a split?
I like being in that position.
No, here's what I can tell you right now. If I gave you an assignment to go through your cell phone, every contact you have that you've made in your life, and you just started saying, hey, something weird's gone on in my world. This last 7 years, I'm a closet real estate investor. I made $1 million and I'm looking for a couple of partners that want to grow this thing way bigger. I've got the system. I've got it dialed in and I know how to make the money. Do you want to learn about it? Take those people to lunch, have a meeting, show them your portfolio, show them who your mentor is. And all of a sudden, guess what? You got people lining up with assets saying, I want to do real estate with you. In real estate, we all got to start somewhere and we need a coach. If you're trying to figure out how to make your first $50,000 on your first real estate deal, get a copy of my book and let me mentor you through the whole process. The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth will help you cause this in your life so that your journey of mentorship can begin right now. Click the link. Let's get started. Now, if I put a gun to your head and said, you have 6 months to transact 20 homes, could you do it?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I know you could. And that already there is creating a level of acceleration, but these games are tied to that. These games are tied to open-mindedness, creativity, doing what no one else is willing to do. I picked you in the first place because you jumped in the river, bro, and you ate your most hated vegetable, which just happens to be my most hated vegetable. And for me, that was a bonding moment where I'm like, not many people are willing to do what I say, but when they do, we get results. So I guess this is a very unplanned question because we haven't had this conversation.
No.
I want to ask you to do this informal assignment. I want to meet with you in a week. And I want to ask you and Shalina to sit down, put your heads together and just ask, what would have happened? What would happen if we bought, before this year ended, 20 homes with partners? Because if you can do 20 homes this year with partners, guess what next year would be? 40. It would be more. And you know what would be after that? In 5 years, bro, you could own 100 homes. And now you're making millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, and you're no longer restricted by you. Already what we've covered in this first season is actually giving you the skills to do that. What do you think about that? Like, honest. What does that ignite? Fears, worries, excitements?
Excitement, like at the potential, like I would love to find people. A little bit of nervousness because it's like warm network. I've always been very careful about getting up in friends and family. Like I won't rent my basement apartment to friends or family. I don't want to be in that business where if I have to evict them, it's going to ruin a friendship or ruin family. So I'm like, I have to be super careful with that.
Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
What if you had a business partner that had $2 billion worth of transactional history?
Oh, it would go a long way to get people's attention.
Not just get their attention though. Help you do it right. Set it up appropriately.
Yeah.
Like you turn that on those close relationships, you turn it over and say, hey, because you're family, you got to talk to my business partner because I need to make sure that you're doing this for all the right reasons. And that we tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that you're opting in the right way.
Yep.
Right there, that edge that I can feel you going up against. What if I told you that that was the difference between retiring with $5, $6, $7 million and 50?
I can see it.
Yeah. But that discomfort that you're feeling, everyone has to find that
edge of growth.
They got to find that, and then they got to ask, am I willing to move past that? Dude, earlier today, I was on my mastermind call, and I just said, for those of you that have been here for the last year, I want you to put a 5 in the chat if you're 5 out of 5 content and happy with what potential you originally were seeking and then got. And put a 1 in the chat if you're like, I just showed up and I still just haven't done anything yet. I was blown away at how many people were 2s and 3s. And I'm like, Come on, what do I got to do? We're here, and we're doing the do, and we got the stuff. And that is what Jim Rohn calls the magic and the mystery. The magic is that everyone can, just like I'm telling you, you can. The mystery, that not everyone will.
Yep.
And I want to put you like on the spot, not for a commitment, but to really evaluate in your soul right now. One person, there's a version of you that is leaping out of your skin saying, Eureka, I finally found the way, so dumb, so simple, so stupid, to finally get where I want to go. But then I see that part of you in there that is like reserved and holding back and is scared and is like, take it easy, don't take risks. What if something bad happens? And I'm not going to criticize and say that's wrong, but I want you to look at the two versions of you and realize, what is my destiny with each of these men? Like, who do I actually really want to become? And do I want to take just the safe road? Yeah, and listen, I'm not here to like encourage you to say, no, aggressive is better and more is better, because I don't believe that either. But it is an opportunity for you to look in the mirror at your own soul and just say, who am I? Who are you, really?
I don't know.
Well, take a week.
Yeah.
Look at the darkness. Look at the fear. Look at the childhood trauma that comes up. Look at a friend that turned you down. Look at the energy of that. Because this is the very first time ever in my life, I'm actually going into a new place with you. Not that you have to go there, but I'm witnessing an energy of you. This is what I witness in people when they come up to their edge, and then they make this decision. I'm out, or I want to go beyond. And I think that's really what I'm curious about with you is, have you met your limit? Have you met your Peter level? Have you met your edge and you're out?
I'm not out.
Or do you go beyond?
I'm just at that blinding edge where it's like,
yeah,
this is next level stuff.
And it's really cool to just, because I'm not going to ask you to do what you're unwilling to do. But I actually think this is a very real spot for you in your life to look and just say, I'll tell you how I felt when I got to that edge. When I met my edge, I was a college kid, and I'm like, I got a job. I've worked for this job for 4 years. I got it to pay me $135,000 a year. I'm not going to get more out of it. Like I'm milking this thing as hard as I can. I was smart, used ingenuity. I've made of it what's possible. And my real estate is now paying me $150,000 a month, which is more than my job. And everything inside was screaming, be reasonable, take your time, don't leap. You got both. You got $285,000 a year and you're 26 years old. Like chill out and just stay here for a hot minute. Like, we're good. But that was not the brilliant part of me. That wasn't the greatness in my soul. That was the scared little boy. There was another voice inside, and it said, what are you made of? Why are you really here? What calling have you been called to? To what end were you made? Do you really want to know who you are? Or do you want to dance in the light where it's safe? And for 2 years, I stayed in the light. And I remember when I jumped, I was terrified and I was blind. And something happened that I didn't know. When I walked away from my job income, I did enough real estate transactions that year that my $150,000 income in real estate grew to $350,000. And that's where I was like, I made more money walking from the thing I was scared of. And that's why if you're up against the blind spot, you don't know what comes next, but we fear that it's less. But what if it's more?
Yeah.
What kind of feelings does that stir up in you?
I do feel like I'm standing up at that edge saying, okay, what am I willing to sacrifice? What am I willing to put on the line to do different? And it's sobering. It's like, feels like, waking up in the morning to a cold breeze. But then deeper down, I am just asking myself, if someone walked up to me and said, do you want $20 million? Of course I'm going to say yes. But in life, everything actually comes with a cost. And so now I'm asking myself, do I really want $20 million?
Yeah.
What is the number? What is the number where I would be satisfied?
And I'll tell you that when you get more than your number, or you build a lifestyle bigger than, it can actually become a burden. One of the things that I've been really waking up to is what I'm calling the mindset of excess success.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing that I'm part of a success movement that has been enrolling people so deep in the game of success that I think they're entering a space of excess, not balance. So think of the people that are so committed to financial freedom in their future that they ignore their wife, their spouse, or the kids. Yeah. The person that becomes a workaholic. And so they're putting so much energy there that they're ignoring God now, or they're not taking care of their body and now they're 80 pounds overweight and they don't have motivation to go to the gym, but they're hungry to take that first phone call of the day because they can't ever have enough success. And excess, I think, follows along with this quote that I memorized it 15 years ago, and it just won't leave me. You can never get enough of what you don't need, because what you don't need can never satisfy.
Because you don't need it.
So it is a worthy contemplation, because a part of you might say, Kris, I actually want to say yes for acceleration, because not when I'm 65, but maybe when I'm 50, I want to say no. Maybe have a different purpose, maybe have a different reason. So actually, I want to create a greater acceleration right now so that I can say I have enough later. Or you might say, dude, listen, I love working and I really see myself working this way till I'm 75. So I don't need to add unnecessary burden by owning a lot more real estate. I'll just let what I have continue to grow. And one is not more right than the other if it's actually in balance. And so I guess here's what I'm telling you. Don't you remember those earlier years, Carson, when you wanted more, but you didn't know how you were going to get there? What was your first salary I gave you?
$28,000.
Wasn't there a part of you that was like, how?
Yeah.
How am I going to move past this?
Yeah. I was like, this has to be a stepping stone.
This
like,
has
I'll
to be a stepping stone.
Put this on my resume and jump to another business that will pay me more in a year.
But this opportunity that I just gave you, which is only one way, but I think you know enough that while it is only one way, it is a way to move you past excess, which means there's then a responsibility to weigh it and then really ask, okay, what is the game plan and what is the strategy and what's smart and what's intelligent and what allows my entire life force mission to come together to produce the outcomes that I want?
You know, Kris, I'm currently in the middle of reading Elon Musk's biography, and the dude, he paid a heavy price to be where he's at today. Heavy price. I mean, his words, he describes it as burning the candle at both ends with a blowtorch for 7 to 8 years. And health compromises, family compromises. And I think that's where I started to clue in on what you were saying. I was like, at what point is it excess?
Yeah. Well, and when we talk about examining a life well lived, think for just a moment that when you get on your deathbed, that's when you're going to be able to evaluate what wasn't enough and wasn't too much. Like those are the moments where we're like, okay, when my kids were little, I wish I'd taken more time here and there. Or will I say, actually, I'm really proud of the way I fathered? Will I say, hey, guess what? I'm leaving behind $100 million. And will you be upset at yourself saying, I wish I could reclaim 10,000 hours in its pursuit, that I would have hiked mountains and seen hidden valleys and read books and made love under the stars and just made different choices.
Right.
The world is so against balance right now. They think it's just so impossible because they're so distracted with their squirrel ADHD minds that you can't ever have enough of anything. And the mantra of the ego is just screaming more. And the reality is, do you really want to wait to the end to figure out what balance is?
Well, and I realized that, Kris, you talk about me starting with you at $28,000 salary. And the reason I was looking for more is because I knew I didn't have enough. So there was only one direction to go.
Yeah. Now
we're getting to a point where it's feeling more like an option.
Yes.
Rather than
obligation.
It's the only door to go through.
Yes.
Right. And by the way, I'm not throwing shade on Elon Musk. Like, people have to make their own. It may have been the perfect life for him. But I'm thinking, for me, it's like I'm not ready to make some of those sacrifices.
It's not throwing shade. There's a difference between judging and assessing character. You get to assess behavior and say, wow, only that person could know whether that behavior is appropriate for them. But in observing it by proxy, here's how I feel like I would be about that. I think so much regret comes from a lack of open-mindedness, a lack of positivity, and an inability to see possibilities, a lack of courage to go knock on doors and trade a paperclip, for a mitten, and to realize that I'm 39, you're saying, and there's a way to live your life in perfect balance today.
Yeah.
And here's the truth. Either you need more money right now that is active or passive, or you need less, or you're at the right amount. And what we do is, if we don't want to live a life of regret, then we make the micro adjustments. For example, if your relationship with your wife is strained, then you shift more resource into time with her and creativity with her, so that you don't look back and say, oof, we fell into a pattern and we had a rough patch for 5 years because I needed to invest more and I didn't. It's all an investment of time and resource.
Yeah.
And so that's, I guess, my homework assignment for you is I would love for you to soul search this week and just say, Kris just showed me a path which leverages everything I've learned. It doesn't take a ton of time. It could easily help me grow my assets many times faster than my assets are growing. And Kris would take me by the hand and do it with me. And so first of all, is it a yes or no? And second of all, to what extent would I then do it that allows me to stay in balance so I don't enter excess success? Deal?
Deal. I mean, I do that all day long. Yeah. You have this tendency to get in and push people to that edge where they didn't even know there was like a limitation. I feel like the entire mentoring journey I've had with you, being your apprentice, has been like pushing me to these edges where it's like, will you?
Yeah.
Will you look at this? And I feel like most people don't even look at it.
Yeah, and they don't. But I think that's because, and this is a principle that I believe that only we can take ourselves as far as we can. This is very obvious to my daughter. My daughter got married last month. Thank you for coming to the reception.
Yeah.
She married the boy that she had loved for 10 years in Taekwondo. I got black belts with them same year. So we have a relationship there. And before they got married, I sat down and I thought to myself, what kind of father-in-law do I want to be? And I shared this advice. Liesl, by marrying Joey, 1 + 1 could equal 11. And Joey, you plus Liesl could equal 11, meaning more. Not just 2. Like, you guys are going to be better off with each other than without each other. But don't believe for one moment that 1 + 1 equals everything. Because the truth is, you guys will find things to fight about, where between the two of you, you can't figure it out. Everyone can fight once, but when you fight a second time, it's called a pattern. And if you can fight twice, you can fight 2,000 times, which means 30 years from now, it could still be a thing that you haven't overcome. They're like, Dad, that sounds awful. How do we overcome that? I said, if 1 + 1 equaled more, then add another one and that equals more. You need to bring people strategically into your world that can help solve what the two of you can't. See, maybe I'm really good at making money, but I don't have time to clean up all my crap or do my laundry or run the kids around on some of their errands. But I pair me up with my wife, and then she's like, I'll drive the kids around. And then sometimes I drive the kids around too. And we
lean on each other, yeah.
Yeah, we lean on each other. But that's just with 2. Imagine if you had 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. I'm not talking about polygamy. Sorry, that's kind of funny.
Careful.
No, what I'm talking about is when you don't have enough resource, then you need more. And that's really a big principle that most people don't understand, is that when you do everything in your power to solve something or fix something or get more and it doesn't work, sometimes you just have to concede that you weren't meant to alone. Don't be a lone wolf. Don't put your head down. It's time to create a different union. It's time to create a different alchemy of resource or people to then produce the outcome that you want. So this week, contemplate whether you are in excess financially in the direction you're going, whether you're falling behind, whether you're right where you want to be. And if you want more, then define what that looks like so that your life doesn't come out of balance. And then push yourself and let's go create it.